Hello, and welcome to Sprint Planning for the Digital Experience team. Oh, sorry, not Sprint Planning, Sprint Retro. So this is what we released on the sprint ending today, May 20th. And it looks like first up is Tina.
It's me, sprint release. Retros later. All good. I'm first. I took a deep dive into OKR planning. There's nothing really fun to look at here. I just tried to get up to date on some of the bigger cross-functional asks and prioritizing that work. I listed some of the new epics that have bones, mostly for visibility, as some of them relate to some of your other OKRs. The top two are what I'll be focusing on next sprint cycle, which we'll talk about later, but that is the product footer, the solutions PubSec CMS template in the product footer. So that's it for OKR planning. I also added a page to the handbook to start kind of collecting some Figma guidelines and naming conventions. I imagine this page is going to keep growing, especially if we start doing some Figma and design 101s. We can maybe add links to those there. And I opened up a collaboration improvement issue just to continue the conversations about team collaboration that we started during our kickoff. That's it for me. And next, Tyler.
Yeah, so I don't have, most of my things are unshowable because they have to live in a dev environment. So I'll just go through them here. Fix up, there was a canonical URL that was incorrect, had some double slashes, so fix that up quickly. Barker and I worked on the template assembly follow-up with some guidance from Tina. Thank you very much. And we wrapped that really early on. And then we were able to move on into all the integrations from Slipper's commit components into the www repo. So I got the speakers, video, benefits blocks all integrated in there. And I know we've got a bunch of others that came through as well. Ran into a thing when we had done our blog updates months ago. We didn't carry over one of the conditionals in the front matter to be able to disable comments, which turned into a problem. So fixed that. I went over this in show and tell, wrote a little script to get a pulse on the activity of commit history in our relevant directories. We also had some breaking stuff in Slippers with some image dependencies, which I patched up at least temporarily for Slippers components. And then the big one that I'm working through today, but is basically ready to go, is content team is disabling the unfiltered. Yeah, months ago, Laura, the blog thing was January or February, months. I don't know if recording sees the chat, but Laura asked months ago. And we're deprecating unfiltered blog, so we've got a linter now that checks all the blog posts and says, hey, is there a new blog post past on or after the 20th, and does it use the unfiltered category? If so, fail the pipeline. So that is gonna launch shortly. And up next is Javi.
So I worked with trying to get some of our slipper spacing to align with Figma. This is its own deal, essentially a past MR that we made where we changed the way that we named different utility classes, and relating to our root M, how all that works. Essentially, that only works for margin and padding utilities, and we're trying to gain alignment for that same thing for other utilities such as top, left, right, background, images, translates, whatnot, trying to get all of those spacing to be consistent. This will probably be released at the beginning of next sprint/iteration cycle, just because we want to have time for essentially checking that all of this actually works as intended. We're probably going to end up setting a alpha version of a Slippers version for this and testing it. But again, I personally feel better doing it at the beginning of next sprint, for that reason, to not feel the pressure of we need to release something by this day. So reasoning for that. Nav work, been working on navigation that's set to be released as soon as possible, essentially. This is the Slippers MR for it, and this is the about GitLab MR that's currently work in progress. I imagine that it's going to take a second to get all of those little kinks worked out. I'm also scoping this works. So essentially we're only promising that this navigation will be a first-class citizen for anything that lives within the primary navigation and big pages such as like home, blog, essentially very like public facing changes. And there's like a lot of technical details that we can get into about like the how, but you can find those details in the MR if you're interested. I also want, this isn't something that hasn't happened yet, but something that I'm looking to do is I want to have with the stuff that's happened with agency day, I want to have like a set of guidelines. I talked about this, I believe the beginning of last week, about like what are things that we can do to make sure that like the agency process flows smoothly. And I think that there was an ebook that I read that I just want to like mind dump into it and condense it down to have like, you know, a good set of like, this is what it means for someone in digital experience team to like, you know, listen to someone's requests and also not be people being pushed around by other people, etc. I just wanted to have like something like that in there, especially because that was something that I think happens for our team specifically, and I want to make sure that our team has guardrails set in place to make sure that they are doing the work that benefits the entire organization. That's it for me. Up next is Jess.
Jess is on the call, so I'm going to speak on her behalf. So next iteration of the pricing page is the talk to an expert call out for those who might prefer speaking to a sales rep when making a purchase. So there's links to Figma and the UX issue there. And then bonus research, product / DevOps lifecycle page usability testing. So there's a highlight reel and an issue to go along with that. I'm up next, and very similar to Tina earlier on, just sort of deep in OKR stuff, planning that out. So I filled out some child epics. A lot of this is subject to change, especially after the meeting we had this morning, which is the prioritization of the top 15 for our OKR, myself and Brandon. So we've split that out and we're beginning to like categorize and prioritize different pages. So we're splitting this work out as we go along. And next up is Laura.
Yeah, similar to what Tyler was saying earlier, I did a bunch of work for the events template that isn't really showable except in a local environment. So I completed the partners block, so a list of sponsors, the announcement block, the countdown, and the header block is code complete, which shows all 3 header variations with an image, with a video, or with neither of those. And then number 24, I moved the slippers components into a shared directory. Javi did a really cool generator MR last iteration or sprint that will put new components in the same directory. So we'll have a directory named, header, and then the pieces within it. So yeah, I just put this in there so you can kind of get a visual of what I mean. Before there was like a folder for like the checkbox view component and then a folder for the checkbox story. Now they're just going to live in the same folder called checkbox. So it's just meant like pretty much just touching every file and moving it and making sure all the paths remained correct. So that was split into 2 MRs last week. And then I made a few handbook updates as well. I added to the digital experience team a little blurb about code freezes. This came up last sprint retro that we were worried about now that we're trying to get more people to contribute to the site, making sure that we have kind of 2-week setting period for any changes that we make in case we're doing testing or usability on any of that, and some guidelines for people who want to contribute. And I added a piece to the handbook just now about pages in Slippers, what has been touched with Slippers CSS, what has been built in Slippers in Storybook. So that MR should be merged in, and we'll kind of have a running list of things that use Slippers. And if people think of it as they're building stuff out with Slippers, try to keep that page updated. And that's it for me. Next is Lauren.
All right, so finished up the event assembly in Slippers and just patched up the copy block. So if you can go ahead and show that, whoever is, and this opens up our events template in Slippers, which is good. It'll carry through. But this is what we like, everything that's in the side that says events. This is everything the team has been building over the last iteration. So if you go down to the mother template, you can see like what the whole template actually looks like all the way down the bottom. You got it all the way. Templates. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, here's our events template. And this is everything the entire team is pulled together to build. And we had to build it in Slippers first. And so this is everyone. And now we go hop back to the agenda. And then the next one, the whole team worked on actually building these suckers into the www repo. And here you can see our actual ERB components. And for this cycle, this is our actual template. For this cycle, I added the copy and image block, the event CTA, event block cards, the connect, the block lists, and the heading component, which I'm going to patch up today. And that was really cool. It just kind of shows the process where we're at right now. Everyone did a really good job just crushing through that. We had some blog SEO errors. I added a category paginator a few weeks ago, and it was putting the same title and description on each of the blog category pages that were paginated. So you can see down, oh yeah, there you go. So if you go to the top, I think it says in the description, it doesn't. It now just says like you're on page 1 of 4 of the news category page, or page 3 or 4, and that's going to help with our SEO results. Added the unfiltered blog post badge to all of our unfiltered blog posts. So it's that cool little purple box down there. So added that in Slippers and then added it to our blog post template. And another quick MR just to add some link styling to our in-text links. So you can see in the text here now, if it's a link, it has the underline. And then if you hover over it, it changes colors. And so that was the first iteration for these install pages. And then I'll be working to add that more globally. And that's it for me.
Thanks, everyone.